What's up guys, Shimbo with the one for an eye and welcome to another video. Last time I shared and showcased to you the upcoming master skills for our private server in RF Online Rising Force Initium, and that would be of the base version of these master skills. And again, you heard that right, a peak update is coming to an RF Philippines server, and that would be of the master skills. Again, RF Initium prides ourselves in revolutionizing and upgrading RF Online while maintaining the classic and grindy playstyle that is the core of the game. Now, in the last video, I did promise you that I will share and feature the class master skills coming also to this update. So let us not waste any more time, let us begin. Let's go first to the RF Empire side. For the warrior classes, first would be of the Punisher class, now upgrading into the Nemesis class. Now, the first skill for the new Nemesis class would be called Thrill of the Hunt, a buff that provides 30 attack and 30 accuracy. Now, this is a general buff that can be used side by side with Magnetic Arm. Then we have another buff for the Nemesis class that would be called the Crazy Time. Crazy Time reduces the cooldown of all the Nemesis skills for 4 seconds and also provides 1000% additional HP regeneration. This skill lasts for 18 seconds with a 24-second cooldown. Next up would be of the Assaulter class, now called the Ravager class. The first skill would be a buff called Unbreakable. It provides 50 resistances and negative 20% on all damage received. But this buff only lasts for 30 seconds. For its second skill, you have an attack skill called the Finishing Move. It is like an enhanced version of the skill Pressure that hits multiple target and is AoE. Now for the Warder class, it is now called the Juggernaut class. First skill would be called Relentless, a buff that provides 35% potion recovery, and yes, that is on top of that Warder skill, giving a total of 70% potion recovery. Relentless buff also provides an additional 20% damage reduction. Now, for its second skill, there is another buff. It is called Absolute Protection. It provides a 40% debuff resistance, similar to the effect of Wisdom Talic. It also increases your block rate for 5%. This is considered as a general buff. Then we have the Ranger classes for Akrasha. First up would be of the Phantom Shadow class, or some would call it the Stabber class, now called the Reaper class. First skill would be a debuff called Maximum Vulnerability. It has the same range as all debuffs in the game, and it drops a vulnerability plus an entangled debuff on its target. Next skill would be called Breaking Point. This can only be used with the throwing knife and is very similar to the backstab skill, except that it is AoE. Then we have the Dementor class, the one with the portal and destruction. Now it is called the Raven class. For its first skill, we have a buff called Alien Technology that provides 30% HP plus 20% attack. The Dementor class also has a new offensive skill called the Deadshot, which is basically a single target high damage skill that can be added to your range combo. And finally, for the Ranger class, we have the Striker class being called the Sinister class. Yes, this is the Launcher class. Now for the Launchers, we have a new skill called Endure. Now for the Endure skill, this will provide the gunner with a maximum HP regeneration and also a 50% damage reduction on damage received. Yes, that is crazy, but this buff only lasts for 10 seconds. And if you plan on using this with the Siege Kit, you would have around 7 seconds of uptime. Then the Sinister class also has a new standing skill, an offensive single target skill called the Big Bang. Now we move to the Aggression Specialist. First off would be of the Scientist or Engineer class, the Rescuer, now being called the Overmind class. First skill would be called a Shutdown, which once activated puts your Rescuer or the Overmind into a stasis condition, very similar to the class skill of the Battle Leader. It has a 30-second duration and a cooldown of 1 minute. Then you have a very strong debuff called the Rust Mites. This has a range similar to a lot of debuff and reduces the target with a negative 100 all elements resistance. It also increases the damage received by 50%. But this debuff only lasts for 24 seconds and has a cooldown of 1 minute. Then we have the Battle Leader class, the Engineer class, now called the Overlord. For the first skill of the Overlord, that is called the Metal Forger. And you know what this skill does? It provides a Resurrect skill. Yes, the Engineer now has a Resurrect. Then for its second skill, it is called the Iron Maiden, which freezes the target enemy for 90 seconds, very similar to Kora's Stone Curse. Now we move to the Bellato race. For the warrior classes, we now look first to the berserker class and its third class version. For its first skill, we have a buff called Quicksilver, which provides the berserker with 15 additional dodge and 20% attack. This is considered as a general buff. Then the berserker will also receive a new attack skill called the Perfect Swing, which looks a lot like the full swing of Kora and dish out high damage to its target. Then for the armsman class, it will now be called the Iron Foot class. First skill for the Iron Foot class would be called the Target Lock. It's a buff that provides the Iron Foot with a 5.0 movement speed. It also increases the attack for 70%. The duration only lasts for 15 seconds and it has a 5-minute cooldown. So Iron Foot actually has the best capability of getting into their targets. For its second skill, it will receive an offensive attack called the Hammer Down, which is a high damage skill. Then for the Shield Miller class, it will now be called the Gladiator class. For its first skill, it is a buff called Absolute Shield that provides 100% block rate for 7 seconds. But this skill has a cooldown of 5 minutes. For the second skill of the Gladiator class, that is called the Impenetrable Defense, which provides 35% defense and plus 20 to all resistances. Now, this is considered as a general buff. Then we have the Ranger classes. First up would be of the Hidden Soldier class, now called the Wild Wolf. Now for the skill, the Wild Wolf has a Duelist buff. Now the Duelist buff provides 20% attack increase and also 20 dodge increase. This buff lasts for 18 seconds and has a cooldown of 120 seconds. The Wild Wolf will also receive the Deadshot skill, which is a high damage range attack. Then the Sentinel class would be converted into the Olympian class. For the first skill of the Olympian, that will be of the Killing Spree buff, which provides 70% attack and 100% ignore block rate. But this skill only lasts for 10 seconds duration with a cooldown of 5 minutes. The Olympian class will also receive the Deadshot attack skill, which is a high damage range attack, and interestingly, there will be an adjustment to the Olympian class. The original Mental Assault of the Sentinel class would be changed to 5 seconds, the Divine skill would be changed to 12 seconds, and the Scamper skill is now gonna be very useful as it provides a 50% dodge at the sacrifice of a 70% reduced damage to the user. Then we have the Infiltrator class, now called the Master Spy class. First skill for the Master Spy class would be of the Smokescreen, a buff that provides absolute invisibility, but you can move. Yes, you can move. You can move. Absolute invisibility means you cannot be detected by clairvoyance. Now, this skill only has a 15-second duration with a 5-minute cooldown. And because you can move, you can also attack. But attacking breaks the stealth. Also, even though you cannot be targeted, you can still hold the target arrow. I'm really looking forward to seeing this skill inside the game. Then for the second skill of the Master Spy, it will now be called Fatal Bond. It can only be used using a throwing knife. It is also similar to the backstab skill of ACC, but is also AoE up to 5 targets. Then we have the forest classes from Bellato. First up would be of the Wizard class, now being called the Sorcerer class. Now for the Sorcerer class, you have a buff called Power Overwhelming, which provides a force range increase of 50 and also improves the force attack by 30%. So this is also considered as a general buff. Then we have another skill, another buff called Protection of the Light. This provides the Sorcerer class with 10% HP and a 10% reduction on damage received. Another general buff for the Sorcerers. Then we have the Astralis class, now converted to the Archmage class. For its first skill, it now has a skill called Teleport. Yes, Teleport. The Archmage can now teleport to any race member within its line of sight. It has a 1-minute cooldown and you can teleport even under battle status on both sides. Then for its second skill, we have an activatable called Reinforcement, which you can recall one party member to your side. It has a cooldown of 3 minutes. Then we have the Holy Chandra class, the healer class, now called the Ascended Chandra. For its first skill, we have another heal skill called the Second Wind. It heals a target's HP by 70% and has a cooldown of 18 seconds. So I think the total heal for the Chandra now is 3. Then you also have another support skill called Release, which basically removes all debuffs on its target. Now we move to the specialist classes of Bellato. First up would be of the Rescuer, and that would be of the Mental Smith class, now called the Hephaestus class. First skill would be called Nurture buff. It provides the Hephaestus class with 30% HP and 30% defense. It is considered as a general buff that enhances the defenses of the Hephaestus. Then for its second skill, we have a debuff called Mute, which the Hephaestus can cast to a target and it will prevent physical and force attacks from the target for 90 seconds. So this is very similar to ACC's Mind Control. Then we have the Armored Rider class, now called the Conqueror class. For its first skill, we have Perfect Rapport. Now this skill provides an awesome 50% self-heal. Then for its second skill, we have what is called Shackle, a net, but casted outside of a Mao. So technically, the Conqueror class is the only footy that has a net in Belato. As for the Conqueror class, good news because Mao repair cost will be manually reduced by 50%. Now we move to the Kora classes. First up would be of the Kora Warriors. We have the Templar class, now called the High Templar. For its first skill, we have an awesome buff called the God Strength. It provides an increase of 100% attack and 100% critical. And it only lasts for 20 seconds. And has a cooldown of 5 minutes. It's literal God Strength. For the second skill, we have an additional attack for the High Templar, and that would be called Final Justice. A high damage skill, very similar to the animation of Death Hack. Then we have the Guardian class, now called the Overseer class. For its first skill, we have a buff called the Divine Intervention, which removes all debuff from the user and also provides an additional 30% defense. The defense lasts only for 30 seconds and has a cooldown of 1 minute. Now, the Overseer class will also receive an offensive skill called the Sword and Board, which is a high damage skill. Take note that for the skill Sword and Board, it can only be used with a knife. Then for the Black Knight class, it will now be called the Colossus class. For its first skill, we have a buff called the Great Wall, which provides 100% block rate and an additional 1000% HP regeneration. This buff only lasts for 18 seconds with a 48-second cooldown. Then we have its second skill called Blood Hunger. Now, the Blood Hunger skill converts 5000 damage HP to an HP healing. Very similar to the Convert rune. And yes, you can even use it on Death Rune tunes, though it has a 5-minute cooldown. Then we move to the Kora Rangers. First up would be of the Adventurer class, now called the Fletcher class. First up would be of the Ultra Instinct buff. Now for the Ultra Instinct skill, this will provide 50 additional dodge and a reduction of 50% on damage received. This only lasts for 7 seconds and has a cooldown of 5 minutes. Then the Fletcher class will also receive an offensive skill called the Arrow Shower, which looks a lot like the multi-shot but has a wider AoE of up to 10 targets. Then the Stealer class would now be called the Deceiver class. For the first skill, the Deceiver class will receive a buff called Hawkeye, which provides 60 range and 30 accuracy. For another skill, it will also receive the Deadshot skill, which is single target high damage range attack. Now, the interesting part about the Deceiver class is that there will be an adjustment on this skill as well. The Stealer class parry will be adjusted with a dodge increase of 50, but a decrease in attack by 70%. Quite similar to the Scamper skill. Then for the next class, the Assassin class will now be converted into the Crimson Ghost class. For its first skill, we have what is called the Killer Instinct buff. Now, the Killer Instinct skill will provide you with an additional critical rate of 60 and a 1.0 movement speed. Yes, and the interesting part about this is considered as a general buff. So the Crimson Ghost class is expected to have the highest possible critical. Then for another skill, we have what is called the Mass Murder offensive skill, which can only be used using a throwing knife, similar to Backstab, and is an AoE of up to 5 targets. Then we have the Forest classes. For the Warlock class, it will now be called the Igneous class. First skill of the Igneous class is now called Wrath of Zeus, which is an offensive skill, a high damage lightning skill, but it has a long 48 seconds cooldown. Then the Igneous class also receives another offensive skill called the Bolide of Destruction. Now this time it is a single target attack that has a very high damage and no element added onto it. It is a ranged physical attack. Then we have the Dark Priest class, now called the Shadow Priest. For its first skill, we have what is called the Shadow Step. Similar to the teleport skill mentioned earlier, it allows you to teleport to any race member within your line of sight. You can cast this whatever battle status you have. Now for its second skill, we have also what is called Omnipotent, which increases the Shadow Priest attack by 100%, lifesteal by 30%, but has a 7-second duration only and a 5 minutes cooldown. Then for the Summoner class, the Grazer class, it is now gonna be called the Conjurer class. Now the Conjurer class has a skill called Master Conjurer, a buff that increases Animus attack by 200%. And interestingly, this is a general buff. As for another skill, we have what is called Blood Boil, another buff that increases the HP and FP of the Conjurer class by 30%. It also reduces the cooldown of 4 skills by 1 second and is a self-buff. Then finally, for the Kora specialist, and the only specialist there is called the Artisan class, it is now called the Scholar class. For the first skill of the Scholar class, it is a buff called Sealed Unseal, which increases the Sealed Animus damage on the same level as a normal Animus damage. As for its second skill, the Scholar class has a buff called Parkour, which provides 100 additional dodge and 100 additional defense. Though this only lasts for 10 seconds and has a relatively short 2-minute cooldown. And again guys, if you are enjoying this video, remember all my videos and contents is supported by Rivalry. Now what is Rivalry? It is an esports betting platform, the best one in Southeast Asia. There are a lot of games, there are a lot of matches, leagues that you can put your bet in, and there are many ways to also bet. You can even chicken out, but there's more. You can also play different games inside Rivalry. You can play Cash and Dash, which is a very interesting fast-paced game, and you can even play the Rivalry Ultimate Fan app on your phone, which is a free-to-play game designed for NBA fans. Now, the best part about Rivalry is actually the communities, events, and activation and campaigns that they do, because they do it in a very genuine manner and is always careful and loving to the community that they cater to. Now, if you guys want to join Rivalry, you can use the link on the description of my video. You can use my code, capital Shinbu with a 1 for an I for an up to 10,000 pesos bonus on your first deposit. But remember, only 18 and above is allowed to use the Rivalry platform. No young ones. Also remember, this is not a livelihood, not an everyday thing. All for entertainment, so only bet what you could lose and always bet responsibly. Back to our video. And there you have it, all the master skills coming for Rising Force Initium. Also as an additional info, take this guide with a little bit of salt, because there are possible changes that can come during development and even after the application of these class master skills. All master skills, including the base master skills and class master skills, can only be accessed via the rebirth system. Yeah, the rebirth system requires your max level character to return to level 1 and grind your way again back to level 60. Only then you can access the master classes and the master skills. So with the master skills and rebirth system coming to RF Initium, now is the right time to actually join the server and join us in the leveling grind and other grind parts of the game. Again, it is the vision of RF Initium to bring and sustain this legendary classic RF Online towards the future. Yes, we love our classic gameplay. We love that grind. That is the core element of RF Online. But at the end of the day, we need and we love these kinds of updates. As long as it is true to RF Online, as long as there's still that grind, as long as there's still that PvP, that PB hunt, that grind, that economy, then we will find more and more unique ways to improve and enjoy RF Online. And beyond that, we can even do a lot of things for our community, such as on-site tournaments, and have a blast competing and meeting up with each other. Anyway, before I conclude this video, I'd like to send the biggest shout out and advance thank you to Havoc for giving me a +6 primal weapon, for making this video in English, and also to our English friend Digel, and also to MF Jones. Welcome back. And of course, in this juncture, I'd like to send the biggest shoutouts to the individuals who made all of our awesome updates very possible. A big shoutouts to our artists Liza, Nariskin, and Taufan. And also, a big shoutouts to one of our banner artists, Irwan. Also, big shoutouts to our social media manager, Rin. And finally, the biggest shoutouts to our developer, Zero. Do check out Zero's website on zerocorp.id and check out all his developer services for RF Online. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Like if you like the video, subscribe to support the channel. Let me know in the comment sections what do you think of this video and what future videos you want to see on our channel. I am Shinbu with a 1 for an I, and as always, all of you gamers, mabuhay!